Welcome to Raising Your Spirits. Our hope is to help you make positive changes by providing guided messages from Spirit. Tuning forks, crystals, and distance healing are how we pass those messages from Spirit to you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your vibrational growth with us. Your host for this version of Raising Your Spirits, Tony Ginnis.
You see, your mind has been conditioned that when it goes out and achieves something, that goes on the board. That's like the scoreboard. When something comes effortlessly, well, that doesn't really count, and we have to squash it. See how the mind shift has to shift a little bit so that your definition of achieving something is something different. If somebody were to come to your front door right now and give you $10,000, do you feel that that is something that you've achieved?
No.
You don't have to answer that. Okay, you don't have to answer that. But you will have a perception whether or not that's something you worked hard enough for. Okay? For a person that does a lot of effortless things, that would be a normal thing. Yep. Yeah, that's something that I could take because it doesn't matter how something happens. I just want to benefit. I just want to be enjoying the fruits of a labor. It doesn't have to be my labor. It's enjoying the fruits is just exactly what it is. Somebody put in the fruits of your labor. That's a programming. When we look at only what we do is what we get, that's the difference between a business person and an employee, right? If a person works for a company, their worth is by the hour. When you own a business, your worth is by the decisions you make that you make enough money on, right? So it's not by the hour, but the people that work for you is by the hour. In other words, your mind is strictly looking at something that if this is the button I press, this is the reward I get. When you don't get the reward, you get upset. When you get the reward, but it's for something else, no, that's not the button that I press. In other words, the mind is just conditioned to be able to get what it feels it deserves and that it's worked for. You put in a hard day's work, you want to get paid for it. But if you do nothing and you get the same money, you would feel awkward. I didn't work that hard. And you would almost feel like, we're not trying to promote laziness, or we're not trying to promote something that you just do nothing and let other people do the work. It isn't about that. It's about changing your mindset that whatever comes to me, I want it to be beneficial and I will accept. And some have a hard time with that. You said earlier that you have this tiger inside of you. So take a deep breath. I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to think of the animal that you really need. The tiger's still there, but it needs another animal. What do you need? What animal do you need?
Something softer, like...
What are you getting?
Like
don't think. What are you getting?
Okay, like koala bear.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, because the koala bear is slow. It goes up the tree very, very slowly compared to a tiger. It would run up. You would be on top of the branch while the koala bear is still in the first couple of feet of climbing up. But the koala bear is not looking at its performance. It's looking that I'm making progress, and it's okay. It's not about shooting over, and it's about your koala making friends with the tiger to teach it that you don't have to outperform everything you do. There is a strength in just reserving yourself. Sometimes the tiger just shows up and it doesn't have to fight, right? It just has to show up. No fighting is needed. It just shows up and sits and does nothing, and massive things happen. Hyenas back off. The most strangest, violent animals will just all look at it for a while and just step away. Fighting is not needed. But if the tiger only looks at what it needs to fight itself through, then it has to fight everything. Eventually, it will be in its demise because it'll be so tired in fighting. But the smart tiger won't need to do that. And it has that quality of the koala bear, where you just have to show up and be cuddly. That's it. I mean, somebody gave you a life and you never had to deserve to be here. You didn't have to prove that you were worthy to be here. You have a beating heart inside of you. You didn't have to earn. It's there. And so when we look at that, it's not that you deserve it. You're here. Now, what do you do with it? What are you doing with it? When we go into this kind of energy system, we want to look at being totally open, and we don't want to fight our way through everything. If you look at any comic book, if you look at any of the Marvel, everything is about fighting good and evil, and at the end, it's the good that wins. That's a construct, because they could move that finish line any way they want. And as long as you have the hope that you could win by fighting, then they have you. But is it possible just to do nothing and win? Is it possible that I could just show up and win? Good warriors did that quite a bit in the early days. All they had to do was show up.
I was feeling like almost like my mind was playing tricks on me sometimes, like, because there were moments where I'm like, I think doing nothing is what's best. And then there are other moments where I'm like, we need to do something. And I'm like, what is going on in there? Is there like a war going on inside me between good and evil as well, where it's like, but also I'm like, is it my mind, or is it my mind changing its mind based on what's happening? I'm like, because I've definitely had this answer before of do nothing, and then felt like, I don't know if that was more angelic message.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, when the hyena keeps biting the tiger and it doesn't stop, sometimes you do have to show teeth. But not every situation is like that, right? Not every situation is that we have to do something about it. Sometimes just to stare. I mean, those parents that have kids, sometimes you could just stare at your kids a certain way, not say a word, and they know exactly what mom or dad is trying to say. They need to just knock it off or just to slow down. They just know by the look. If a parent is always screaming at their kids, there's no power. There's no power there. And the kids are laughing at them. It's a joke. And I say that with the highest respect for those that have a hard time with their kids. It is a real mindset. The way I was brought up is my dad would just have to look at me. He says, no. And he'd just shake his head and didn't have to say a word. And I stopped whatever I was doing. I was always in trouble for something. It's that persona. And it's that mindset is that I don't have to always fight. I don't want to always fight. It's too exhausting. But we are more energy beings than we are physical beings. Just our physical body is just the evidence of the aura. The aura itself is actually backwards. Our physical body is the aura, and the aura is the physical thing that's really going on. The vibration is so much slower in our physical body is that we could see it and we could touch it. It feels solid, but it's still moving. It's still at a certain vibration. Your hand can go through it if you had a certain vibration. But that's all it is. But it's our mind that controls how we look at things, and it sort of runs the show. If it's running the show, then it is all about attaining something and not having credit that you got it. As long as you are looking at getting a solution and giving the mind the credit that it got it, it'll always be a struggle. You're always going to pretty much be guaranteed that you're going to be unhappy. But when things just come to you, he says, hey, something just came to me, and you just write it down and you just go with it, and it becomes a number one hit, then you could say, great, I'm glad I got connected to that. Some people will say, well, it wasn't me, and so they'll just deny it and think that it just came out of nowhere. It's giving credit where credit is due. And the reality is we don't really create anything. We don't create anything. Everything that we create that comes from outside. Everything. Even the music that is forced. If we want to create a piece of music, or we want to create a business, or create a new job, or create a larger family, or create a new home, we do that by force. The question is, are you going to have it long enough? Because when we do it by force, then it is unnatural. It didn't come as a presentation. It came because you pushed your way through. And yes, it does work, but we see so much examples. And I have a personal example. When I built my moving business, it was small to start with, and then it grew to a very large company, and it was built on anger. Every time that somebody did something, I didn't discipline my kids through force. I was a very angry person at one point. But that got me through a lot of times where we had to keep going. There was just no option. I was the only one making any money. My wife decided to raise the kids, and which is a great profession because our kids were great. She did an amazing job. It was just that sheer will that I built that company. Once I sold it, I ended up losing my house, my car, the business, all the proceeds of what I did for the business, because it was all done through sheer will. It wasn't done because it sort of presented itself. And so I ended up losing everything just for different things that had happened over the years. And I had to basically start over. But starting over is a completely different leaf. I'm being presented things that are just, here you go, here you go. I look at those as that is something that came to me. And so what I do with it is the achievement. So when we look at the creation, isn't the real mark here. If somebody gives you something, what are you going to do with it? If somebody gave you $10,000 and, you spent it all on a nightclub in one weekend, okay. If you took that and you made it into a lot more money, let's say, and then eventually you invested it into young performers that are struggling and whatever it is that is sort of pushing you and wanting you to have this higher purpose, you'll know that. Then you're using those funds that were presented to something better. Then more of that money starts coming. And it's sustainable. Everything you do then has a purpose. It just comes out of the blue. And then it's like you can't really make a mistake because everything you do, there's more coming. But if you do it through will, then it's limited and you have to always fight for it. And then when you get it, then you have to fight to keep it. So it's very exhausting. And it is a long term when you're going through that thinking that, why can I just do nothing? And why isn't it not working? It's because the definition of doing nothing to you means lazy. Doing nothing means inactivity. And that needs to change, that definition. You can see if that resonates with you, if it's something else, but the word doing nothing hits a core with you. When somebody says, aren't you doing anything? Maybe as a kid, somebody told you that. And they say, I am doing something. And then you have to fake that you're doing something. So it's almost like action is the something that they're looking for. It isn't. It's all vibrational. Doing so much just by doing nothing and just allowing something to come in is harder than the other stuff. I've done it both ways. And it's much harder the other way. It's sheer will, and it's so much extra work, so much extra pain, but it's still not sustainable. But you want something that comes to you, like a beautiful relationship that just comes to you, and it doesn't leave. And it's not something that you did. You didn't have to, they parachuted into your life. What did you do? I didn't do anything. And a lot of times I'll ask myself, what did I do to manifest this person or manifest this thing? What did I do? I mean, I didn't really do anything, but I allowed it. I was at a point where it was vibrationally presented to me. This is what you need. And so now it's whatever I'm doing with that thing that makes the huge difference. But when your mind thinks it has to create it, it's a struggle. It's suffering. It's nasty sometimes. So if you're done with the nasty, let's try something different, you can say to yourself. Let's try something new. Present it to me, and then I'll work hard to create whatever it is that I need to, because there's a higher purpose when I get presented this. Then the creation is open, and then the execution of what you do with it is a completely different story, right?
Much more smooth.
It's a lot smoother, because then it's all about sustainability. How can I sustain this? And it's easy because you never created it in the first place. So there's no attachment. You didn't have to take credit that I did this. That's why when we
I can
say,
just
I don't know
I can just
anything,
let go.
yeah, yeah, just let it go. Just say, I know nothing. Just present whatever I need. Just say to yourself, just present it to me and I'll take it from there. Present me good health and I'll take it from there. Rather than struggling to get to this perfection body only to, within a year, you're back to where you were. So it's all about sheer will as opposed to doing nothing. I struggled for that for years. It is a tough concept to get through until you realize that I was creating that ownership. The ego wanted to take credit for creating it. And that's the problem. That's the block. It is such a difficult shift, to be able to go from total doing to just total allowing. It is massive. It's like the difference between trying to slam dunk a basketball than just to hold it in your hand and from where you are, the ball should just go in. Like you're thinking, how on earth would it do that? We just throw it anywhere, and then it'll just, once it's in the air, the wind will catch it, and then it'll slam dunk it. But if it goes in, we did it. Because I still had to throw it up, Because this is a very big thing. When we overthink something, it always, always undermines us. It is all about that allowing. It would be so nice to get something today that I didn't ask for, and I'm just going to allow it. It's that deserving energy. When I get a parking spot, close to the door, and I always do, about 2 or 3 minutes before I get to a parking lot or a supermarket parking lot, I say, put me as close to the parking lot door, or so I can just go in, and it's very close, so that when I leave, I can bless somebody that's not having a good day. That's my intention. So I always get a very close spot, and most times I get it right at the carts at the front. And so when I'm coming out and I put my groceries in, my intention is, okay, God, or okay, Lord, okay, Spirit, I want you to give this spot to somebody that really needs a break today. And as I'm backing up, I see a BMW, and he's honking his horn, and I'm waiting, and then he just speeds off because he's not going to wait for me to get out. And so that's okay. I get out, and just as I'm coming out, I can see a mother with 2 kids, and the kids are jumping in the back seat. Literally. And I says, okay, here's a lady that could probably use a break. And she's right at the front. And so that's how I manifest something for somebody else. I get the benefit of a close spot, but then so does somebody else. I pay it forward. That's how I manifest. How does that work for you? When you're looking at the process, what is the benefit for you to get an idea for a piece of music or a piece of writing or a job? Because if I get a job in a high-level place, that means someone's able to move up. In other words, someone deserves a promotion, but they can't promote him until they fill his position. So for me to get that job, he has to go up. That's how I usually make that choice, is that just put me into some place that someone's going to benefit for me taking that spot. So when I leave, then I can give that person that spot as well. So don't get too hung up in the process. Like, I got to do this, and this. That's one way. But things can happen in so many ways. You could get an inheritance that you didn't know. You could get, there's so many ways that things could happen to you just because you're at the right place at the right time. When I got Stella, our dog, there was no pain. It was so effortless. They actually drove from Montreal to drop off the dog, and I was more than willing to drive to Montreal to pick up a free dog. That was another thing. The dog was free. And I would have driven there. But I said, no, it's okay. We'll come to you. And all I had to say is, okay. That's all I had to say. I didn't do anything, but a lot got done. And in doing that, now I am taking care of this dog in that way. I now have this dog. It's now my thing to be able to train the dog and feed the dog and so on, and just to become part of my energy journey. And that's sustainable. I didn't have to work hard to get it. It just came to me. I hope this was a valuable class today. Spirit really wanted to hit home about our thinking. It's our mind that is our best friend or our worst enemy. And when we look at it that way, that I want my mind to be a friend. It's been too long that I've been fighting with it or fighting for it, or I just want to stop the fighting, stop the resistance. Whatever I get, and let's move on. We don't need to think. We just need to allow these things to present itself, not take any credit for it. And then from there, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do when you get a first number one hit? You get a number one book out there. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay in your house and just sort of, okay, I got a book, and now you have something on your shelf that's a bestseller, rather than doing interviews and tell people how you got there? Because someone else out there is struggling, and they're about to quit. And then they hear you. They hear your work. They see your work. They read your work, whatever it is that you do. And he says, oh, that's just what I needed. Because I get this all the time whenever I'm looking for something. Okay, Spirit, our topic today is impartiality. Our topic today is being neutral. So send me something. And this is all the poems and stuff that I'm getting that Spirit is sending me. They send me one thing. I don't second guess it. I take it. Yeah, that's good. And it's part of the class. That's why there's so much. In the beginning of the week, I have nothing. Zero. I don't even know if I'm doing a class on Monday. And then sometimes Tuesday, Wednesday, okay, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden, Thursday comes and I get this plethora of information, and I just go with it. Some of the things that I'm getting, I don't think it's applicable, but then they say, yeah, it is. You just not seeing the connection. And then as I'm working with it, I said, oh, okay, yeah, it does connect. Okay, cool. And it's just following it. That's much better than trying to figure what class I'm going to do for next week. Oh my gosh, do you imagine? We're coming up to our 3rd year doing this. I was only going to do this for 3 months. That was almost 3 years ago. I started in February of 21. So we're coming up to our 3rd year. I could never come up with this many topics and this much insight and this, if I just didn't put it out there. And the first thing I get, I write it down. Because that's how they work. The first thing, take it. Don't go second guessing. Just take it and just move on. It's coming through me instead of from me. Way different. It's like kids. Kids don't come from you. They come through you. I love you all. Have a great weekend, guys. And we'll see you next week. Okay. Love you. Take care.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay. Bye. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Raising Your Spirits. If there is a subject you would like to hear in a future podcast or would like to book a session with Tony, reach out to his Facebook group at Ginnis Shields Natural Healing Center or group tuning classes with Tony on his online virtual weekly classes. The YouTube channel is Suzanne and Tony 17. That's Suzanne and Tony, all one word, and the number 17. And the website is lovehigherself.com. Until next time, namaste.